Hello everyone and welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name's Michael and I'm bitten by radioactive book. Today is Monday and that means weekly review time on my channel. This is actually a 2-week review and I'm talking about the 5 books I was able to finish within the last 2 weeks. First off, we have the Aztecs Elevator by Lemony Snicket. It's the 6th installment in his series of unfortunate events. This one was interesting because it did a combination of things. It stayed in the format that is so typical for the series. If you have read a book of the series, you will know what I mean, because the structure in every book is kind of the same, while still managing to do something with the overall narrative of the series. So now finally we get like a little bit of a consistent narrative, a kind of serialized narrative, but it's still not enough to like break out of the typical format, the repetitive format of the series. And so, although overall that might be one of the better books I've read in the series, it's still far away from being like a 4 or 5-star book, but it was enjoyable and so I rated it 3 stars. Next up, I finished Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. It's his first installment in the Shattered Sea series. We are following Yavi, who is a king, or not a king, actually he wanted to be something like a minister, but then his father and his brother died and suddenly he is in the position where he is king of kind of a Viking culture fantasy nation, and he has a disfigured hand, so he can't really fight, and of course in a society where fighting is so revered, that is really difficult. This was a book that was a surprisingly enjoyable read. I was a bit on the fence about it before, because it was marketed as young adult by Joe Abercrombie, and I can't really get that into one thought, because Joe Abercrombie, as being the Lord Grimdark, as you may know if you follow him on Twitter, it's kind of strange to see him as tame as he is in these kind of books, and so the book had a very interesting reading curve for me. The first, so the book is split up in 4 different parts, and the fourth part, the first part was really like not my kind of thing. It was slow, all over the place. I wasn't really feeling it. Difficulties to make connection with the series. But then the second and third part were really solid. We have a change of the setting. There are new characters coming in, and that was really enjoyable. So that was a very solid read. And in the fourth book then I really realized, oh yeah, I'm reading a Joe Abercrombie books. There are terrible things happening to people, and the feeling of despair is there, that he's able to relate to the reader in such a great kind of way. And there were some very surprising elements in this one, and so the ending especially was really satisfying for me, and overall I rated it 4 stars. Next up we have Hyperion. It's the first installment in Dan Simmons' Hyperion Cantos, and it's kind of a science fiction classic already, a modern classic. Hyperion structure is very interesting as well, because we have an overall story of 7 pilgrims in kind of an not apocalyptic setting, but end of the world setting, in the feeling that you know there is like a huge interstellar war brewing, and we're on the brink of that. And before that backdrop, we have the 7 pilgrims, who are the last ones who are allowed to travel to the planet Hyperion to visit the Shrike. And the Shrike is some kind of mythical monster that has the ability, or has like powerful abilities. So maybe he's able, or it is able to grant wishes to the pilgrims. And so every one of the pilgrims who were like thought out, I think, um, have some special motive to actually get to the Shrike. And the book consists about this overall narrative as the pilgrims travel to the planet, and then on the planet try to get to the Shrike. But the majority of the book are the stories each of the pilgrims has to tell, because they said, okay, we want to know why each of you is here, or each of us is here. And so over the course of the book, the pilgrims all tell their own little story, and so you have this kind of short stories that are interconnected by the overall narrative. And for me, most of these short stories were very interesting. There were better ones, there were ones that were less interesting to me, and the overall narrative is very intriguing as well. As maybe if you have just read about Hyperion once in your life, you will already know that it has kind of a cliffhanger ending. So you kind of don't get like the full conclusion of the story. So there is a second book that you have to read to get the full conclusion. I think the book ended very well in knowing that. I was expecting way more of a cliffhanger, if I'm really honest, but the way it ended, knowing that it will be like a cliffhanger ending, then that was very satisfying in the end. And so, because not every story connected with me, I had like 2 of them where I was like, more about it. It isn't like a 5-star book for me, but it was a very enjoyable 4-star read. Next up, we have The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. This is his second YA series, the Arithmetist series, next to the Reckoner series. Here we have kind of a steampunk setting. It's 1908 in an alternate reality where the US and Canada, so the whole Northern American continent, is split up in 60 different isles or islands. And so we have the United Nation of Isles, or American Isles, or something like that. In this world, on the island of Nebraska, there is a mysterious tower, and from that come wild sharklings, like 2-dimensional beings that are able to attack humans. And humans are somehow, that's a mystery that will be solved over the course of the book or the series, are also able, some of them, to become arithmetists, and that means that they can draw with chalk and do magic with that. That's a simplification of what it actually is, but that much for now. And we are following Joel, and Joel goes to a school. He is a teenager, and on his academy they have like general studies, but also arithmetic studies. And Joel isn't arithmetist himself, because you have to be chosen to be. Like, everyone does a test when he's like 8 years old. And Joel wasn't able to take the test at the time, and then was like dismissed as not being an arithmetist. So he's obsessed with arithmetists on the other hand, and that makes for quite an interesting story, because he always wants to know about arithmetists and want to get involved with them, but they are very secluded and don't really want to let him in. And yeah, that all changes a bit when a few murders happens in arithmetic society, and he's assigned to a professor, and the professor is helping with the investigation of those murders or disappearances. And yeah, so that is how our story gets started. And overall, this was very enjoyable. It doesn't or didn't have the flaws that I think Brandon Sanderson's Reckoner series has. It's, yeah, as I said, very enjoyable. Nothing like that will really blow your socks off. Just as I said, a really enjoyable story, and therefore it got like a weak 4-star rating for me. And I'm looking forward to read the second one. And the last book I was able to finish is In the Hand of the Goddess, the second installment in Tamora Pierce's Song of the Lioness Quartet. These books are like really fast-paced and plot-driven. It's kind of insane what happens in like 200 or 250 pages of time. Other books would do way more in regards of like characterization or establishing world and characters, and take up like 600 pages for that, what Tamora Pierce does in this kind of middle grade book. And that is, I think, the explanation of why it is so fast-paced. It is catered towards a middle grade audience, or that a middle grade audience can enjoy it as well, and therefore it's not like overly complex and doesn't give much insight behind the world, and it's more like really straightforward. But this kind of straightforwardness, I don't like that in like every kind of book or series, but in this series it somehow works for me. I really like the characters. I really like how like really straight it is, and so it's very easy, fast-paced to get through, and it was a nice, refreshing read, I think. So overall I rated it 4 stars. Obviously it's more like a 3-star book, but but my personal enjoyment just bumped it up like another star for me. So a really enjoyable series, and I'm now looking forward to see what the other 2 books are about, because at the end of the second book we have like an event happening in Alana's life, who is like the main character of the series that we were looking for for the course of the first 2 books, and now I'm really interested to see what happens in the next 2. So that's it for this week's wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you want to see more of me, subscribe to my channel. If you want to know what's coming up on my channel, please look inside the description box. There's a little segment there called On the Horizon. I wish you a good day and hope you get bitten by a really good book too. Bye.